In this video, I'm going to be creating two motion graphics, but with a twist. I'm going to be giving myself a time limit to create each motion graphic. For the first one, I'm going to give myself a maximum of 10 minutes to create it. And for the second one, I'm going to give myself a total of 1 hour. Hopefully you will be able to learn some things for your own motion graphics in this video, but also hopefully by the end of the video, you will be able to see the clear difference between spending 10 minutes and spending 1 hour creating a motion graphic. And then you can finally answer the question, is it worth spending the extra time? Also, just a quick mention, if you are a beginner or intermediate video editor looking to level up and edit like a professional as soon as possible, then I would highly recommend that you check out my video editing product Skillcut through the top link in the description below. So to start off this video, I'm going to start off by trying to create the 10-minute motion graphic. So for this one, I have a maximum of 10 minutes to create it. It may go over by a couple of seconds. It may be a couple seconds less, but it's always got to be around that 10-minute mark. So I'm going to start off by creating a new composition. I'm going to name mine 10 mins motion graphic 2. Then I'm going to create a new solid, press OK, and then I'm going to type in gradient ramp and I'll add this onto that solid. I will change the ramp's shape to radial ramp. I'll swap colors and I'll make this in the middle. Then I'm just going to extend this out and I'll change the white color to a dark grey color. Then I'm going to change the ramp scatter to 512, and I'm also going to add this grid over the solid. Then I'm going to search up tint. I'm going to swap colors, so I'll map white to black and black to white, and I'll change the opacity to 27. Then I'm going to import this spotlight moving background, and I'm just going to scale it down and rotate it so it's horizontal instead of vertical. Then I'm going to change the mode of the grid to overlay, and I'm going to change the opacity of the spotlight to 12%. And as you can see, we now have this. Then I'm going to add the tint effect onto this spotlight. I'm going to map white to this light blue color. Then I'm going to make this start further in because there's this part at the start where the spotlight comes in, and I don't want it to come in. I want it to already be in. So I'm just going to trim it so where it starts. But as you can see now, it's shorter. So to extend this, I am just going to duplicate this. I'll move this one at the end, and then I'm just going to change this second one to time reverse layer. So this is basically just going to make the video go the other way when it reaches the end of the first one, to basically extend it without actually being able to see the visible cut between the first and second clip. Then I'm going to import this puzzle piece vector, which I found on Freepik. I'm going to scale it down, and then I'm going to double click on it to show the 4 separated jigsaw pieces. I'm just going to go into composition settings, and I'm just going to extend out this composition because it's a bit small. Then for piece 1, I'm going to keyframe the rotation and position at the start. Then I'm going to go forward by around 2 seconds, and I'm just going to add another 2 keyframes. I'll go back to the original ones, and I'll move this one to the right and up a bit, and I'm just going to rotate it to like positive 25 degrees. Then I'm going to go to the second set of keyframes, and I'm just going to make this so and then it is connected to the other jigsaw pieces. Then I'm going to keyframe the opacity at 0% at the start, and then I'm going to go forward by a bit, and then I'm going to make it 100%, so and then it fades in. Then I'm going to highlight these 4 keyframes, and I'm just going to move them forward a bit in time. Then I'm going to highlight these 4 again. I'm going to press F9. I'm going to go into the graph editor, and I'm just going to highlight all of this, and I'm going to create a steep peak in the middle. And as you can see now, it smoothly moves in. Now I'm going to go back to the original composition, and I'm going to create a new camera. This is the settings which I'm going to be using. And I'm also going to create a new null object. I'm going to add this below the camera, and I'm going to link the camera 1 to null 1. Then I'm going to get all of these layers apart from the camera, and I'm going to make them all 3D. Then I'm going to keyframe the position of camera 1 at the start. I'm going to go forward by around a second and a bit, and I'm going to create another keyframe. I'll go back to the original one, and I'll just zoom it in a bit. And actually I'm going to move this second one so it's further away. But then as you can see, we've run out of the background. So I'm just going to increase the scale of the black solid, the grid, and both spotlight layers. I'm going to make sure both of the spotlight layers are the same or you'll see a change between the 2 clips. Then I'm going to highlight these 2 keyframes. I'll press F9, and then I'll go into the graph editor to create a steep peak at the start like so. I'm going to keyframe the null, but to find the exact point, I'm going to go back into the puzzle piece composition, and I'm going to line up my blue line with these first set of keyframes. Then I'm going to add a position keyframe for the null here, and then I'm going to go to the second set of keyframes, and I'll do the same thing with the null. Then I'm going to go to the second set of null 1 keyframes, and I'm just going to move the third position keyframe, so and then the camera moves closer to the jigsaw piece. Then I'm going to highlight these two, I'm going to press F9, and actually I'm going to go to the puzzle piece keyframes, and I'm going to line up my blue cursor with the like center peak of this graph, and I'm going to do the same thing with the null, so and then the peak of this graph is at the same point. Then I'm going to add the glow effect onto this jigsaw piece, and these are the glow settings that I'm going to be using. And this is what we have so far, and we still have 2 minutes left, so I'm just going to do a couple more things. I'm just going to go before the last null keyframe we made, and I'm going to add another keyframe for the camera, and then I'm going to go forward by around 2 seconds, and I'm just going to zoom the whole thing out. Then I'm going to go into the graph editor for these keyframes, and I'm going to create another steep peak in the middle. As you can see, it zooms out, zooms back in, and then zooms back out again quite smoothly. Now I'm going to try and create a animated green tick, so I'm going to get the pen tool, and I'm going to create a tick with the pen tool. I'm going to increase the stroke, and I'm just going to play around with the tick until I'm happy with it. Then I'm going to center this, and I'll make it 3D. I'll position this below the null, and I'm just going to move this closer to the camera, and I'm just going to go to just before the last movement starts to happen with the camera, and I'm just going to keep moving the third position keyframe for the tick until it's like behind the camera. And then as you can see, if you position it just before the camera, when we zoom out, the tick will come into shot. But you can still kind of see it at the start though, so we'll just move that after. But first, before we do that, I'm just going to scale it down and position this back in the middle. I'm going to add the glow onto this tick. I'm going to increase the radius, and I'm going to decrease the intensity a bit as well. I'm also just going to cut this here just before we can actually see it, so we can't see it earlier in the clip. And I'm going to add the trim path effect onto this tick. I'm going to keyframe the end at 0% at the start, and then I'm going to go forward by around like a second or so, and I'm going to make the end 100%. I'm going to highlight these two keyframes, I'll press F9, I'll go into the graph editor to create another steep peak in the middle. So as you can see, now we have a tick transitioning in. I'm just going to extend these two keyframes out, so then it's a bit smoother. And now I've done that, this is the 10-minute motion graphic finished in 10 minutes and 9 seconds. Now I'm going to move on to the much bigger edit, which is the 1 hour motion graphic. So for this one, I will probably end up cutting out a lot of the recording because it's just so long, and this video will be pretty much an hour and a half, roughly, if I don't cut this out. So I'm still going to include probably most of it, but I'm just going to cut out quite a lot of it because, as you can see, yeah, an hour is going to be quite a lot. And also, I'm going to make sure to include the key parts. So my vision for this motion graphic is I'm going to create a 6-sided cube, and each cube is going to be a wall, which I'm going to create. And basically, I'm going to add on each wall the numbers going from 1 to 4, and then at the end, I'm just going to zoom out to show a coin, and then I'm going to zoom out again to show 2024. And this, without any context, might sound really random, but basically this would work with the voiceover, and the voiceover would be something like, there are 4 ways that you can make money in 2024, or like, there are 4 steps that you need to take if you want to become financially free in 2024, and it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, zoom out to show the coin, and then zoom out again to show the 2024. Or no, actually, no, it's going to be 2025. But yeah, that is the vision behind this motion graphic. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new composition. I'm going to name mine 1 hour motion graphic 2. Then I'm going to create a new solid, and I'm going to search up gradient ramp again, and I'll add this one onto the solid. I'm going to move this point here, and I'm going to move this second point up here. I'm going to change white to blue, and I'll keep black where it is. And I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to get rid of this gradient ramp on the second layer. I'm going to search up grid, and I'm going to add the grid effect onto this black solid. I'm going to change corner point and change it to width and height sliders. I'll make width 100 and height 100. And I'm going to change the color of the grid to black, and I'll change the border to 3. And as you can see, now we have this automatic grid that's been made for us. Then I'm going to change the opacity of the grid layer to 24%. And I'm going to make both these layers 3D. Then I'm going to pre-compose these layers, and I'll name it grid wall. Then I'm going to make this pre-composition 3D. And I'm also going to create a new camera, as well as a new null object, which I'll place below the camera. Then I'm going to duplicate the grid wall, and I'm going to rotate the Y rotation of this second grid wall to positive 90 degrees. Then I'm going to move this grid over to the right, and I'm also going to move it closer to the camera with the third position value like so. And I'm just going to move it around so and then it's just like connecting with the wall and it's not going inside of the back wall. Then I'm going to add the motion tile effect onto the grid wall. I'm going to increase the output width and height to 500, and I'll click mirror edges. Then I'll copy this and I'll add it onto the second grid wall. And then I'm going to move this one way further to the right. It's still there, it's out of shot, but it's still there, it's just much further away. Then I'm going to move this camera back to reveal both of these layers again, but as you can see, they are much bigger this time. Then I'm just going to duplicate this grid wall, and I'll move this one onto the opposite side of the camera, and I'll try and position it so then it's in the same spot. But then actually I'm going to flip horizontal for this one, so and then it's like on the other side, so and then it looks better. Then I'm going to go into this grid and I'm just going to play around with this a bit, so and then it looks like a bit better because it doesn't look great. So yeah, I'm just going to keep playing around with it a bit as well. And then actually I'm going to click flip horizontal again on this left one because it looks better now. We've played around with the color, and I'm just going to keep moving the camera back to reveal what we've got, just to like show you guys, like basically the camera is just going to basically actually act as a camera, but I don't want it to be all the way over here, so I'm just going to move this all the way over inside of the actual grid walls. Then I'm going to duplicate this bottom grid wall, and I'm just going to change the name to grid floor, and I'm just going to decrease the X rotation to -90, and this will make it a floor, and I'm going to move it down so and then it's actually a floor. But I'm just going to increase the motion tile by a lot, so and then it actually covers the screen as well. And then I'm going to duplicate this grid floor, and I'll move this one up, so and then it's actually like, I guess, the grid ceiling, but we'll just keep it cool. We'll just keep the name as grid floor. And actually I'm just going to move this up so then we can actually see, and this is where it gets a bit fiddly, but I'm just going to basically try and create an actual roof on the actual cube. And I'm just going to move the grid up, so and then it's now another, like it's a cube again, instead of being a really long rectangle. And then I'm just going to play around with the position of the camera, so and then it's actually in the middle of the cube. And actually I'm just going to move all of the wall layers just a bit closer to each other. Now I'm going to duplicate the back wall, and I'm going to move this one so far back that it's actually behind the camera, so then it disappears again. And this will basically act as the back wall. And I'm just going to move this camera further in. And then I'm going to open up the rotation, and I'm just going to rotate the camera like 90 degrees. Basically the goal is we're going to try and make the camera right in the middle, but it's hard to do that by just, you know, moving it and just guessing every time. So the best way to do it is by just moving the walls equally far away from the camera. So as you can see, like this like side wall is way closer to the camera. You can't see the ceiling or the floor like you could for the other one. So we're just going to move this second wall back. But I'm just going to extend the floor so and then it's bigger as well. And I'm just going to move this wall so it's closer to the camera as well. And now I'm happy with that. I'm just going to make the Y rotation 180, and as you can see, this one's way too close as well. So I'm going to do what I just did. So I'm going to move this wall further back. As you can see, we can't even see the ceiling, so I'm just going to extend that one as well. And I'm going to then go back to the start, and I've just realized that basically you can't increase the motion tile so much, or your computer, it just can't handle it. So what I've realized is basically the floor is like way unequal. So basically I'm just going to get more floor. This is such a bad explanation, but basically to get like the floor over on the other side, I just need to move it because most of it's actually behind the cube and it's not really balanced, and we've run out of floor and we can't increase the motion tile much more. So basically I'm just going to keep moving the floor until it's actually like equal. So I'm just going to move this one closer to, basically going to move the floor closer to the camera, so and then we have more floor on the other side. Because as you can see, I'm moving it back and it's still not even like ran out because most of it's behind the back wall. So now when I rotate it back to 180, as you can see now, it's covering the screen again. But I'm just going to move this back wall a lot closer as well. A good metric to use for this is just like like measure how much you can see of the bottom floor with a ruler, or just like, I guess you could use your finger, or just eye it up, and just make sure that the distance between the edge of the screen and when the back wall starts, like that period where you can see the floor or the ceiling, make sure that's the same for each, and then that will show that you're actually in the middle of the cube. So yeah, I'm just going to switch between until just to check that all of the walls are fine. But no, this one, as you can see, the ceiling you can't see, so I'm just going to extend the ceiling out a bit. Then I'm going to go forward to 270, and as you can see, this one's way too close. So I'm just going to do what I did for the other one, so I'm going to move it back. And as you can see, that's pretty much already done. I'm just going to go through all of these just to check that they're all equal. Then I'm just going to link the camera to the null, and I'm just going to get the shape tool, and this is where I'm going to start creating the numbers 1 to 4. So I'm just going to get the ellipsis tool. Actually, I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to drag to create a circle. I'm just going to move this in the middle by aligning it. I'm going to turn off the fill, and I'm going to increase the stroke, and the stroke will be blue. Then I'm going to add the glow effect onto this circle, and I'm going to increase the radius a bit. Then I'm going to make a number 1, and I'll increase the scale of this and center it as well. Then I'm going to add the glow onto this number as well, and I'm going to increase the radius as well to about 100. Then I'm going to link the number 1 to the actual circle, and I'm going to move both of these down below null 1. But the problem is sometimes when you make 3D layers, it messes up the positioning of them. So basically you need to just move it back to where it was before, but using like, basically you can't just align it this time because you can't align 3D layers. So I'm just going to play around with it until it's back where it was. But the main thing I want is I basically just want it to be like just in front of the actual wall. But a way of like checking that it's in the middle without actually being able to align it is I guess you can use a ruler, you can use the grid layout in After Effects that it has for you, but the one I'm just going to use is I'm just going to use this grid that I have, and I'm just going to import it. I'm going to make the opacity like 10%, and as you can see, we now have like a guide, and I'm just going to make it central like that. And then I'm just going to turn off the visibility of the grid. But I'm going to keep it in the composition because we'll definitely need it a few times. Then I'm going to keyframe camera 1 at the start, and I'm going to go forward by around a second, and I'm going to add another keyframe. Then I'm going to go back to the original one, and I'm just going to move the camera further away from the number. Then I'm going to highlight these, I'll go into the graph editor, and I'll create a steep peak at the start. And as you can see, when we play this back, it just zooms in, and that's a nice way to start off this video. Then I'm going to go just a bit before this second camera keyframe, and I'm going to keyframe the rotation for null 1, the Y rotation. I'm going to keyframe the position as well. Then I'm going to go forward by around like, I think 2 seconds maybe. And then I'm just going to rotate this. So, and then it is positive 90, but it's kind of messed up the positioning. So then I need to change the position of it. So, and then it's now basically in the middle facing the second wall. But this will take a lot of adjusting to put it back to where it was before. And as you can see, it turns to the side. I'm going to highlight these 4 keyframes. I'm going to go into the graph editor and create a steep peak in the middle to make this movement a lot smoother. And when I play this back, as you will see, basically it will turn to the side in quite a smooth way. Then I'm going to go just before keyframes for the null, and I'm going to keyframe the position of the camera. And actually, I've made a mistake. That should be the rotation. So I'm actually going to keyframe the Y rotation around like 2 seconds after that, and then I'm just going to go back to the first, like where I put the keyframe for the position, and I'm just going to instead add a Y rotation keyframe. Then I'm just going to rotate this to like positive 90, so and then this rotates to the next wall. But as you can see, there is like a mess up in the corner, but we'll fix that in a sec. And just to fix this, I'm just going to increase the motion tile, so and then it like closes the gap. And as you can see, now we're onto the third wall, so I'm just going to create a steep peak in the middle with these 2 keyframes that we've created. And as you can see now, it goes from 1 to the second wall and then to the third wall. And actually, I'm not very happy with how the actual wall is looking, like the colors of it. So I'm just going to adjust it, and I'm going to change the colors to this instead. And because I don't want this video to be too long, I've just had to play around a lot with the camera because I wasn't very happy with it. I feel bad for you if you're following along with this, because basically I'm not going to really show everything I did because I've played around with it too long and I kind of messed it up, and it's going to be so awkward to edit this. So basically what I did is I kept playing around with the positioning of the camera positions and I kept moving it. So as you can see, yeah, it zooms in, goes to wall 1, then wall 2, then wall 3, and then wall 4. But then basically after that, like, it will make another movement. But basically, I just want to redo this number 1 just to make a small adjustment to it. So I'm just going to create another like circle with like a blue circle. And as you can see, I'm just going to recreate it again. I'll add the grid again just to center it again. And now I'm happy with that. I'm just going to duplicate that and I'm going to basically move this second one so and then it's to the right, and I'm going to rotate it so and then it is positive 90, basically the same rotation as the wall which we're going to move to. And then I'm just going to move this one to the right, and basically the goal is to basically add this like second circle onto the second wall that it like transitions to. Yeah, I will say I haven't really explained this video too well, but this video is less of a tutorial and more of you, like me showing you guys what I'm actually doing, like what can be done in an hour. I'm going to move both of these layers below the null one as well, and I'm just going to basically play around with the positioning of this until it's on the second wall in the middle. I'm going to use the grid again to make it central, and I'm going to change this like number so then it says number 2 instead. So as you can see now it goes number 1 and then number 2. And then I'm going to duplicate this again to create number 3. So I'm just going to move it to the right again, and I'm going to rotate this one so and then it's like the same rotation as the wall we're about to transition to. Then I'm going to move it like here, and then I'm just going to try and basically track it onto the wall so then it's at the same position as the actual wall in the middle. So as you can see, now we go number 1, number 2, and then we transition to the third one, but we need to play around with the position of this because it is so off. Then I'm just going to use the grid once again to center it. And I'm going to change the number from number 2 to number 3. So as you can see, now we've done this, and now it's time to move on to the last number. And I also forgot to mention that the last movement which I created after this, which I'll show you how I created in a sec, is basically just like it's going to basically transition to the last wall and then zoom out again. But now I actually need to do number 4, so I'm just going to duplicate number 3, and I'm going to move this one to the right again and rotate it so and then it's at the same rotation as wall number 4. Then I'm just going to track it onto wall number 4 like I've done 3 times so far. Then I'm just going to turn on the visibility of the grid, and I'm just going to make it central. And once I've done that right, that should basically say number 4, and that should be the final wall. So here we go number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, and then it's basically going to zoom out. And now I'm going to import this dollar coin, which I found on Freepik, I think, and I'm going to add this below the null. I'll make it 3D, and now I've made it 3D, it's messed up the position, so I'm just going to bring it back into shot, and I'm going to rotate it to like -90, so and then it's in the right rotation again, and I'm just going to keep playing around with the position of it, so and then it's going to be just behind the camera just when we start to zoom out, and if you position this right as I zoom out, as you can see, the camera will pop into view. But I'm just going to play around with the position of this a bit. But I really don't like the fact that I can see like the number 4 circle behind the hole in the coin. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm just going to create a like black circle. So I'm just going to create a circle with the ellipsis tool. I'm going to change the fill color to black, and I'm just going to center it, and I'm going to make it 3D. And as you can see, I'm just going to basically play around with the positioning so and then it's just behind the coin. And as we can see, you can't actually see the number 4 anymore. Then I'm basically going to create another zoom out by basically swapping back to the null 1. It's basically just exactly what we've done many times in this video. It's just basically just creating a keyframe before the last one and then going forward by a couple seconds and then adding another keyframe. But this time we're just going to zoom out with the camera and then go into the graph editor, create a steep peak in the middle, and then it will just create the same kind of effects we've done quite a few times in this video. But then I'm going to get the text tool. I'm going to type 2025 in white, and I'm just going to add the glow effect onto this text. I'm going to increase the radius. I'll center this. I'll make it 3D, and then I'm going to move this closer to the camera. And actually it's rotated, so I'm just going to rotate this to +90. I'll move it closer to the camera. As you can see, yeah, it's at the wrong rotation, but let me just position it first, right where I want it to be, and I'm going to make it -90 instead. And as you can see, it says 2025. I'm going to increase the radius a bit, and I'll add the drop shadow effects onto this text. And I'm just going to increase the softness of the drop shadow. Then I'm just going to center this text in the middle of the coin. And I'm just going to play around with the positioning until basically the camera, when it zooms out again, it will then like reveal the text behind it as well. So basically it's going to have the same thing that we did for the coin, but it's going to do the same thing but for the text this time. But I am just going to play around with the positioning of it a bit as well. And as you can see, yeah, it zooms out to reveal the text. But I'm going to go literally a frame before you can see the text, and I'm just going to cut this layer, and I'm going to add the typewriter effect onto this 2025 text. And actually the second keyframe is out of the video itself because it's too far on, so I'm just going to move this forward in time. I'll then move the keyframe closer to the first one, and then I'll move this back to where it was before. And as you can see, it basically types out the word 2025 as we zoom out. Then I'm going to add this light leak onto the video, trim this and add it so, and then the light leak like starts halfway through the light leak when it's like fully bright. And I'm going to add the tint effects onto this light leak. I'm going to change the color to a light blue color, and I'm just going to scale it up so you can't see the black bars at the top and bottom. And I'm going to change the mode of this to screen. I'll change the audio to -15 because this light leak does come with audio and it's a bit loud, but I still want the audio, but I don't want it to be as loud. But we still have around 15 minutes, so there's a couple things that I want to do while I've still got the extra time to make this a bit better. And basically my vision for this part is I basically want the coin to spin as we zoom out, and I want the coin to be 3D. And this might sound a bit confusing if you've never done 3D, but I'll show you how you can do it. So I'm going to search up in the effects and presets shatter, and I'm going to add this onto the coin. Then these are the settings which I'm going to be using. You can slow this down if you're copying it, but basically just make the settings the exact same as the ones I've done. There's so many though that I've sped it up and I don't want this video to be long. Basically just make the settings the exact same as what I've done. So as you can see now, it's rotated to the side and we have this 3D layer, and the side layer is like this like golden color and the like front layer is more like yellowy. But then I'm going to go into the inbuilt camera position for this, and I'm going to keyframe the Y rotation at 0 degrees right before it starts. And actually I'm just going to move this to like -39 actually. And then as you can see, it's rotated to the side. I'm going to go forward by around a second or two, and I'm going to make this 0%. Then I'm going to press U to show the keyframes this is created, and I'm going to highlight them, and I'll go into the graph editor to create a steep peak at the start. And as you can see, then it slowly like rotates more, but it doesn't rotate nearly as much as I want it to be. So I'm just going to rotate it to like -64 so it rotates more. And I'm going to space out these two keyframes a bit as well. But as you can see, the edge of the coin gets cut off. I'm not really sure why this is, but basically like it looks horrible. So I'm basically going to fix this by searching up grow bounds in the effects and presets, and I'm going to add this onto the coin. And as you can see, when I add this effect and I add it at the top, like right above all the other layers, basically it corrects this issue. And actually I'm just going to move the first rotation to like -88 just so it rotates loads more, and I'm going to space out these two keyframes. And as you can see, this rotates a lot and I really do like this look now. But you can obviously see the black circle we created earlier, so we'll need to fix this. So to fix it, what I'm going to do is I'm actually probably just going to create a new one. So I'm going to get the ellipsis tool again, and I'm just going to create an oval shape like around here, and I'm going to make it 3D, and then I'm just going to add it. So, and then it's like basically where it was before. I'm going to rotate it. So, and then it's like kind of the same rotation as the coin. It doesn't need to be. At the end of the day, this does not need to be the same. Like this does not need to be like the same as the coin. It just needs to cover the actual like $sign bit. So I'm just going to try and position it so, and then it covers the coin, like the dollar bit at all times. As you can see, when we zoom out, it kind of tracks onto the whole thing. You can kind of see it through the edges, so I'm just going to scale it down a bit as well. And I'm just going to cut this so then it just starts right when the coin comes in, so you don't need it before then. And as you can see, it does actually cover the coin, like without actually having to track onto the coin. Actually, I'm just going to rotate this dollar coin even more. I want to see how it looks. So I'm going to space out the keyframes more. And actually, yeah, I do really like this. But this will probably mean tracking the black oval shape will be quite hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually just move this position. I'm going to scale it down, and I'm going to go into the settings. I'm going to go to content, ellipsis 1, ellipsis path 1, and I'm just going to keyframe the size and position like near the start, and then I'm going to go to the end, and then I'm just going to move the position of it. So then it's in this like near the center again, so and then you can't see it at any times. But yeah, I've actually managed to do this. Like, it's a very strange way of doing it. I probably could have just downloaded a coin which had the center like kind of filled in, but that's the thing, is I quite like this coin, so I just would rather do this, and it's quite simple anyway. And actually, now I've done that, this is pretty much all I'm going to be doing for this actual animation. It's been 52 minutes and 13 seconds, and in that time, this is what I have created. I do really apologize for the explaining in this second video and this second motion graphic. It's just, I had a really nice concept in my head for this, and to be fair, I did actually kind of make that into a reality, but it was really hard to do. And sometimes I was finding it really hard to explain how to actually do this. So at certain points, you probably are so confused what was going on. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. But I guess this was not necessarily so much of a tutorial. If you want to have tutorials, I've made many on my channel, which are actual in-depth tutorials where I go through every single step of the way of how I create stuff like this. But just a quick reminder about Skillcut. If you are a beginner or intermediate video editor looking to level up and edit like a professional as soon as possible, then I would highly recommend that you check out my video editing product Skillcut through the top link in the description below.